Hey everybody, we're
Hello.
back.
Been a little while.
Yeah, since we're able to sit down and catch up. Tonight, I guess we wanted to talk about or discuss chapter 9, the separate self. Right? Great book if you haven't picked it up. Lost Teachings of Atlantis. I believe you uploaded or tagged a video.
I did the audiobook playlist.
Yeah, on Facebook for everybody in the Ancient Astronaut Theory, the Real Truth group. So you guys could listen to it if you don't have the book. So
Yes.
on, I guess when I was talking to Alex a little while ago, the things I wanted is just to kind of highlight or bring, I guess, to the forefront of everybody's minds on chapter 9 would be that the biggest thing for me when I read it is that I understood, and I now understand because I was able to read this and interpretate it and think about it, is that the separate self to me is that this world isn't a dream. This is a dream or sleepy time world. And we are literally walking around unconscious every day. He and I, we're in the unconscious state. And to me, the conscious state or the conscious awareness state would be when we're tapped in or one with the Creator.
You can become more than that. It's just more, because you being aware of your is-beingness. The way that you're going about it, you have to think of it more so as an is-be.
Okay.
As an oral. You already know the information. The separate self allows us to do things on the outside, external world. Granted, though, the external world is an illusion. None of this is actually real. It's just all vibrations within a field. And we're expressing ourselves and experiencing that vibration of the field. So we think that we're separate, but really, it's all the same thing, just having different plays.
Because really, we're not separated from the Creator.
Yeah, you can't be separated.
Yeah, it's just that our consciousness,
your awareness, is
more unplugged.
Yeah, when you sleep and you finally don't, when you don't dream, inside the Upanishads, this is whenever it says that's whenever you become one with the self again, but you don't remember it. You merge with the greater spirit during your time of sleep. And it's because the whole point of meditation is so for you to have your awareness there as the rest of the world breaks down, the false truth of the world. So.
And I find it too that, like you said with the meditation, it also helps you to bring you come back in touch or back in balance with nature. Because right now, us being humans, right now, the way we live in today's world, we're out of touch with nature.
Well, yeah,
we really are.
Go outside, you don't play, you get off work. I mean, when's the last time you went walking through the woods?
Yeah.
So, most people live out of touch with nature. They don't even go by nature. More so, they're afraid of nature. So therefore, how can they nurture nature if they know nothing about nature?
Correct.
And you have people that are spraying things and everything else like that and using unnatural processes to try to make the world be what they want it to be, but the world doesn't conform, and in the end, we're about to see the solar storms happening.
Right, and I find it in this book when the teachings of the children of the law of one, it says that you must engrave this part in your mind. It says it is important. The Atlantean children of the law of one teach the world's problems are our personal problems, and all the actions that create the problems come from our delusion that we are separate from the one, and that the selfishness that results from that delusion. So basically, if you change yourself, you change the world.
It would require, this whole thing would be really simple. The whole world is not hard to change. The world is easy to change, very easy. It's just the people won't do it. They refuse to look at themselves.
Yeah, you have to shed your ego.
You have to shed yourself, period.
Mm-hmm. And that's the issue right there. Selfishness. Because in this book he talks about make sure that people have to understand that it's not greed. the bottom or the root cause of all the problems, the bad things in this earth, is because people simply selfish people are acting selfishly.
Duh.
They're
That's
only
greed.
yeah, they're only thinking about themselves. And it's up to each person to change themselves and not the world. That is the only way to change the world. Each of us is a selfish person acting selfishly. We are thus our own enemy. Thinking that you are separate from everything else, then looking out for number one, then that begins. And when you have a whole world full of people looking out for number one, you can see the results just turn to the news, and that's true.
Yeah.
And you know what I thought was really, like, we had discussed it a couple videos back, or like the last video where we were talking about how the fall happened. And it talks about, he explains it a little bit more in the fall, is that they had to vibrationally had to slow down and get more dense in order to become into this field and to achieve their goal to be materialized or come into a materialized form. And when they did that, the greater they fell or the greater they came into this vibration or this density,
the greater they slowed down their vibration.
They slow down their vibration, but also when they got into this physical plane, their consciousness became more and more limited and cut off from the universal consciousness.
It's not that, so they did it too quickly and they didn't understand the laws behind it.
And it says, and then the greater was the separation from the one.
That's because they didn't understand the laws behind it. They went too quickly. They were playing. They were children.
Yeah, and then it says, we entered into this plane of dualities and polar opposites, and we changed greatly from our previous spirit forms. We were no longer angelic beings with self-contained energy flows. Our internal male and female elements had once been so fully integrated that there was not even a concept of male or female. And that, to me, just, when I read that, I was like, wow. So this is probably off subject, but that again resonates with me, and it takes me back to where it talks about, when it says this, I'm thinking of people who are transsexual, where they want to identify, well, some want to identify they're born into a man's body, but they want to transgender. They want to identify as being a female, and vice versa, a female wanting to identify as a male.
But you're really neither of those.
And the only reason why that is because for creation purposes at this point, procreation purposes. But before, we were both male and female. We were.
There's not male and female. There's no such thing as a gender.
Well, we had both, according to what it says here, we had.
That's polarities.
Yeah,
energies.
both polarities. We had both energies.
That has nothing to do with gender. There's no such thing as gender. That's a construct that they have here, and that they can't seem to free themselves from. But then people have to go out and be like, I am gender. I have this gender. This is who I am. I identify as my body. Oh, my body. My body is me.
Yeah,
The
and
change
that's
my
the
body.
whole point that they need to get out of. They need to shed that selves, and they need to understand that they are not their bodies. And that's the whole point. That's the whole problem. Sorry, you guys. We got some knucklehead behind us who picked up something hot without having something in his hands. Like a pot holder. So he's running around the house doing this. Anyway, so I guess for this, to me, it just resonated with me because it really explained the problem of how we got to this point, and it just builds on, or not really redundant, but it just helped me to understand that the bottom line is that we're all walking around unconscious, and until we shed our ego and shed ourselves and get out of ourselves.
It's not that you're walking around unconscious.
Well, when I say unconscious, I mean we're not plugged in with the universal oneness right now.
You're not. There's various levels of filters to be removed, and you're still removing your filters to where you can fully see and click. You'll get there soon, but yeah, that's one of those things, though.
So, like on this one where it talks about the threefold nature. It says, as if separation for the oneness didn't cause enough problems alone, the separate self is further separated within itself, and the lower an individual's consciousness is, the more that they have more internal separation problems. So, you know, we can already identify some people that are in a lower state of vibration. We all know this because we watch the news. You know.
Well, what that's saying is like how you take on more identities. Everyone does this. You build yourself so you're like, oh, well, this is what I do. I am this person. I have this that I like doing and this that I dislike doing. By making like and dislike, you cause more separation.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing.
But
You have to read the Upanishads to understand it.
and in this part it's on page 120, and it talks about three makes a whole, and it says you may have noticed how numbers and certain mathematical geometry seem to weave threads throughout the life and are somehow significant to many things. This has to do with the vibratory nature of existence, and it is discussed more in a later manuscript, but it also implies in the following teachings. But in any case, here are some obvious scientific facts and some teachings about our two and threefold natures. So it talks about some aspects of ourselves divided into two parts. There is the selfish and unselfish split parts that we spoke of, the male and female split, the logic intuition split, and then the intellect and emotional split, the positive and negative split, and then the two split parts are often at odds with each other. Some people, regardless of sex, are more right brain and others are more left brain. Still, other aspects of ourselves are divided into three parts, which we are about to discuss. So it goes into talking about that, and I just found it like all creation has a threefold nature. Within the threefold nature, we can see that the twofold dichotomy of the material plane, these natures can be looked at and thought of in many different ways, but here is a fundamental concept. The first nature is light in the positive polarity. The second nature is darkness and the negative polarity. The third nature is the interaction or intercourse of the darkness and light as a whole. The threefold nature has been represented by various religions in various ways. The yin and yang, the dark and light, interacting in a circle, the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost. And this four represents in many ways, such as the cross, the tetragram, and the oldest name which is the oldest name of God.
Tetragrammaton
Indicates the offspring of the three and the beginning of the new cycle of creation. This will be covered in a later different chapter. I just thought it was very interesting how everything everything is broken out by mathematical equations. There's order in the universe. There's order in chaos.
There is order inside chaos. It's partially there. There's certain layers and conditions that are set to allow for fruitful things to happen. But it's more like a petri dish of randomness. But it's chaotic, but it's still planned.
Yeah.
It's the hardest thing to find is, as you read inside of there, it's in between.
Yes.
It's never one way or the other. The answer is actually the part that's in the middle. And that's why it's going to be really hard for people to understand this stuff. Because you have to exist in between.
Yeah.
I write about that when I write my stuff. I always write stuff that's giving away information.
Yeah, so I think for me, though, until I got a point to where I could receive this and understand what's being said in this book, because we talked about this book and we talked about this book that I had bought a while back.
I've been telling you that you need to read that book.
I've read pieces of it, but to be honestly, I found more.
That's because
I resonated more with this book because to me,
it's given to you in here.
Well, it's given to me in there, but here it was confusing to me with all these different stories.
If you know what you're looking for.
My mind was not working.
You don't see the self.
My mind doesn't click that way.
You don't see the self.
Yeah.
That's why you don't click. Like I said, eventually you'll have the understanding of the self, and then you'll be able to read that book.
Yeah.
Right now you're getting this little baby stuff.
Right. And to me, that's the basics, because there are a lot of people still will not be able to understand this. They still will not be able to get their minds wrapped around it. Everybody learns and grows at different levels, like we talked about.
They can wrap their mind around it, but they won't. The problem with them is that they won't want to accept it, because they spent their whole life chasing after things,
material things,
and accumulated things, and now those things own them.
Right. And until a person is ready, if they're really seeking the knowledge and they really want to understand who they are and to get back to the oneness with the Creator, what we've been taught and what actually is written in the book. You don't even need to get
back to oneness with the Creator. You just need to get back to being your Isbe.
Right. Well, I'm speaking in terms of the video because...
Yeah, well, once you get back to even this, if you get back to your Isbe is the self, your original thing. You take off everything else, there's only the self.
Yeah.
That's there.
And a lot of people are going to have a hard time doing that.
Well, yeah. That's because
But that's the whole purpose of us.
They don't want to give up the external or what they think they are. You can make people go around saying that I am black, that they own like this black pride thing, and all that stuff like that. And all they do is they're like, "Oh, we're supposed to be special. We're supposed to be the chosen ones." So they say, some of them,
as that,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And at the same time, they fail to see that there's this thing within them that gives them power, and not the body. They're deluded by their senses once again, caught in the world of illusion. So if you see people going around and be like, "I'm spiritually woke," and they're claiming to have a race, they're not woke. If they don't see how like nations are just circumstances of where you're born, they're not woke. If they don't see that, like, what else is it? Pretty much everything that most people like go around like, "Oh, this school is the right way to school." Well, no, it's not, because you have to go through and read all of it. Like literally, you have to incorporate all, and as you weave the all together, you'll be able to to synthesize it. And you right there, once you weave it together, you will see the self. The self will be looking right back at you.
And I agree with you, because, not to cut you off, but just like you were saying, when you say I identify with being this, I was on this path, and he pointed that out a couple times to me. He's like, "Mom, you're missing the whole point." Well, yes, this body, the people of color were created first originally. Maybe because they had 3 different types of kaolin clays, which Roger from Mud Fossil brings up, a good point. But the point is, we're still stuck on identifying who we are as individuals, when we are not even these bodies. These are just avatars. This is deception again in this material world, in this holographic program. It's a deception.
You forget about that a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, well, it took me a while to see that, and so now when you and I are speaking to them on camera, they're probably gonna go like, "Okay."
It's not hard. All you are is the person looking out of your eyes.
Yeah.
Go into the closet, shut the door, and sit there for a while. All you're left with is being the thought inside the dark. Everything else on the outside of you is built through systems and perceptions and vibrations. Your body is just a vibration that's manifesting itself. You learn how to do proper things, you'll be able to change your vibration and change the way you your representation inside the field. But that's getting into the deeper levels and aspects of the self. I wouldn't even call it alchemy. Like people, like now everyone's saying alchemy, and that keeps on popping up, and everything just keeps on happening. And I'm like, oh, from anything that I've learned inside all my years of doing this, is that once it starts to become mainstreamy and sound like everyone's like alchemy, and you go listen to them, they're usually like partially right, and then they go with like some crazy thing that goes off, and that may be true for their reality, but from what I can see most of the time, it's not fully there. They have pieces.
Their teachings, yeah. So would you agree that this book so far is good information?
It has a good concept, good thought. It's just like A Stranger in a Strange Land, another book that people should read. Yeah.
Or listen to the audio.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we can link that tonight if you guys have time after you finish this, because I recommend
Stranger in a Strange Land is just an actual story. It's a book.
Yeah, it's a fiction. But
it's basically about Michael. Michael is like one of the children of the Law of One, except for he was raised on Mars, because it's pretty much universal anywhere else. It's only here that we act retarded. Well, for the most part, there are other planets in the cosmos where they do these things too. You can't just put it all on Earthlings and their problems. You know, Earthlings are special.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. But we're all growing. We're all changing. And the whole purpose of us is just to learn and grow from one another, and to get out of this rat race, or get out of this maze and make it back to self, to source, to creation. Because if you know thyself, then you'll know the creator. And the thing is, there's so many distractions. You gotta, like you said, you gotta peel back your ego, and you have to take off the distractions. You gotta tune all that other noise out.
Before you can even take off your ego, you have to take off your flesh.
Meaning, explain that to them, because they're not gonna understand what you mean.
What do you mean? You have to stop wearing your body. You have to stop wearing the place you were born. Your random things that just happen to populate inside your life. That you have this look or that look, that you're beautiful, that you like this thing or that thing. You have to flush yourself. You have to take away everything you built up. You can't get there with a false perception. You must become clear and crystal clear of what you are as a being in the active present and moment of now, which is what Zen Buddhism was all about, trying to get people to get into the now.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And see, my whole thing is when I wake up in the morning, my whole thing is, oh, let that ring. I'm sorry, that's not talking about anything. Yeah. My whole perception when I wake up in the morning, I always tell myself, thank you, Heavenly Creator, for allowing me to be in this body and be present in this moment and to have this experience. Because I understand now that this body is temporary. You know,
you already understood that.
Yeah, but now it's ingrained into my mind to say, okay, you know what? I'm living this life right now. This is all temporary. You know, I need to get to point A to point B. I need to move forward and to progress and to grow. Not everybody people still have issues with that. People still have problems with that. They're still caught up in the day-to-day muck, you know? And that's the whole purpose of us explaining that to them and just trying to reiterate that. And like you may teach it one way or say it one way. I may say it a different way to where we're both saying the same thing. We're just saying it in two different ways.
Yeah. I mean, you can go read. It's really not hard.
But Alex, some people, they do have a problem with learning, or not even learning, but it's hard when you've been taught a certain thing. When you go into these buildings and you go through worship and you sing songs and you pray and you listen to the minister on the podium, it's hard for you to you gotta unprogram yourself, really.
It really is.
You really do. It's like hitting a reset button, a power button on the laptop. You gotta shut it down and then reboot that crap.
Wasn't that hard for me?
No, but not everybody's like you, son.
Everyone had to go to Sunday school.
Yeah.
You know that when you were a little kid, you had questions you asked, and the preacher said, and you was like, what? Sitting there reading.
You used to tell me you could fly all the time, and we all can.
I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to be flying again. Watch me. Done paying for gas. Coronavirus, not in the sky.
What is it? Like this? What is that? Spot?
Nope.
Live long and prosper.
Straight up Dragon Ball Z, Super Saiyan, out of here. I'm flying. I'm going, bye. We don't live long and prosper around here. Y'all can stay down here with coronavirus. Be in the skies. High in the skies.
Even though they are spraying the skies, but that's another video.
That'd be all right. I'll commit him down, but just a giant magnet.
Yeah. So basically, my whole take on this thing is, to wrap it up, is we need to shed ourselves. We need to check ourselves. And I'm getting in my own way right now. Because like the book says, you will start to argue with yourself. Your separate self is that. It's going to fight to maintain who it is in the program, in the matrix, as I like to call it. It's going to fight you left and right.
Because it wants to remain.
It's almost like you're fasting and your body's like, feed me. And your mind is like, no, I got this. I'm in charge. You're not eating today.
See, inside my brain, I've always been separate from everyone else. Remember when I was a kid, I didn't have other friends? Yep.
I know. So but not everybody is at that point. Everybody's still starting off as like baby steps for some people.
I still don't get how people were inside church and they're little and like they read, it's like, Jesus says, you can do what I can do. And he who believes in me can do even greater things, which means like, nah, he literally means just, you can do greater things than he did. Like walking on water and all that stuff is just basic level stuff. There's bigger things. It's like, oh, go to preacher. Jesus says I can do what he did. I can do greater things. And then it's like, no, you can't. He's a son of God.
But we're all sons and daughters.
No, that's what I'm sitting there like.
Yeah.
So I'm really like trying to figure out how, like, where inside their minds did they not understand that? Because like as a little kid, I'm like, the dude talking about? I thought we supposed to be following Jesus, and he said this. Why am I gonna listen to you?
So as a child, he was questioning everything.
Duh. It's not even. That's why I was quiet, because everyone said stupid stuff.
Yeah. I'm
convinced of it now. Like, I don't like talking about stupid stuff. And if people are talking about like sports or whatever, I'm just gonna sit there and be like, la 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 la, do la la do. I still do the same thing.
Yeah.
Have not changed.
Yeah, I know. But it's just really interesting to see that after reading this book, I feel like after I finish this book, I'm on chapter 9. I'm reading it slow because I had to go back and reread a couple of pages or a couple of chapters.
You have to reread it.
Yeah, but I think at that point, once I finish, then I can possibly read the Upanishads. I'm gonna say that.
You might be able to.
But the one thing that I wanted to say though before everything on page 119 in chapter 9, I wanted to call this out really quickly because I know our time is running down. We are each, it says, we are each sleeping with the enemy we created. We remain unconscious, letting our enemy command the helm of the ship of our lives. Like a dream we have no control over. Meanwhile, our spiritual self, our energy body, our internal self, that's what he's saying, the part of us that is the one with the universal spirit is locked up in the brig and just forced to go along on the voyage like so much baggage. This is something that each one of us must personally come to deal with and then be on alert about each moment of our days on earth.
Now, see, from the Chandogya Upanishad, it's just random part. It's like, when a person departs from this world, dear one, his speech merges in mind, his mind in prana, prana in fire, and fire in pure being. There is nothing that does not come from him. Of everything, he is the inmost self. He is the truth. He is the self-supreme. You are that. Sevet Ketu. You are that. Please, Father, tell me more about this self. Yes, dear one, I will, Undalaka said. As bees suck nectar from many a flower and make their honey one, so that no drop can say, I am from this flower or that. All creatures, though one, know not that they are one. No one, know not they are that one. There is nothing that does not come from him. Of everything, he is the inmost self. He is the true supreme. It's the same thing that you're saying, we're talking about, like, oh, there's only one self, and it's not selfish, and it's not separate, and how the flowers give pollen to the bees, and the bees make the honey, and the honey supports the ecosystem and brings life, and all that stuff. It all goes together.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. It's actually more descriptive in here and more in depth with you seeing how the world breaks down.
Yes.
And separates into different pieces inside the Upanishads than it is inside of the the lost teachings.
That makes sense.
Because that's why if you're able to go through the Upanishads, you're able to trace your way back. If you listen to if you read the lost teachings where it is now, they're giving a basic synopsis of it, but you're not really going to be able to trace back the vital powers of how everything animates the body in the avatar system. Correct. So if you want to have real control of everything, you have to read the Upanishads.
Yeah.
So, but we're almost out of time, so.
Yeah, we just wanted to come to you guys again really quickly and kind of cover chapter 9. Please, you guys, chime in, leave comments or something in the description box below when we upload this video to Facebook. And by all means, please, anytime, ask questions and let us know your thoughts because we're all here to learn, grow, and share from each other, correct?
Yep. I'll be doing more live streams of my own soon, so.
Yeah.
Look forward to that. We'll be going through the scriptures, actually reading various books and breaking it down. I'll choose parts that better talks about the self so it makes it easier to understand the self and weave it together. Yeah. Well, you guys have a great night, and remember, be the change that you want to see all around this planet because it is up to you and I to make a difference and make that change, correct? Yeah. Love you guys. Later. Bye.